Welcome to Daily Tax Savings. This is Tony Novak here to share a few points on saving taxes and staying out of tax trouble. Today, the topic is getting scammed. And as many episodes do, it came from stories, real cases. Yesterday, I had two phone calls about different scam cases. Both cases were third parties. In other words, it wasn't me, wasn't my client, wasn't the person calling, but it was somebody they're working with. One was another accountant, and one was a financial advisor. And so, we're hearing about this third person. But in each case, the purpose of the call was to ask about, my friend, my client's been scammed. Um, how do we handle this for tax purposes? And since this is a tax show, we're going to dwell on the tax aspect. But first, I just want to make a just general comment. Scams are much more rampant, much more common, and larger than most people realize. We hear about one once in a while, but I think a lot of people don't talk about it. They're embarrassed to talk about it. And maybe that's a good thing, but for their privacy, but it's also it makes us underappreciate scams. In both of those cases yesterday, the amount of money lost by each of those people was more than I earned in a year. And so I've often made the comment that, if all I did for a living was talk to people about transactions that they were about to enter into, and we were able to avoid them simply by taking normal precautionary steps, and then we split the savings, my income would go up. I mean, I say that in a joking way, but the point is that avoiding scams is frankly a much bigger deal than reducing taxes in the work that I do. Yesterday, the financial advisor who called me to tell me about his client getting scammed then reminded me that a couple of years ago, we had talked, he got scammed himself in a boat transaction. We're both boaters, and that's one thing we've had in common for years. But he was trying to buy a boat, and he got scammed, and he reminded me of that. So the point is, it can happen to anybody. Oh, and one of the victims was a PhD. So it's not a matter of lack of intellect or lack of sophistication. Anybody can get scammed at any time. It really helps to talk your transactions through with a disinterested person. Us CPAs were professional skeptics, and so I think that just talking it over in advance could have saved any of those transactions. Okay, but let's talk about taxes now. So in almost all other things we deal with, transactional taxes, the nature and determination of the tax is already settled at the time that the transaction settles. In other words, we always talk about people come to ask for tax advice after they sold a business, after they liquidated a stock or bought or sold a piece of real estate. That's too late to be asking for tax advice. The opposite is true here when it comes to scams and losing money. In those cases, this is one of the rare times in tax law where the tax treatment may well be determined long after you first realize that you've gotten scammed. The tax treatment is often determined on the final disposition of that event. For example, you bought stock and it turns out to be a scam company. There was a company here in South Jersey that was a delicatessens trading stock for hundreds of millions of dollars. You find out that the stock's worthless. What's the tax treatment? We do not know yet until that stock is actually liquidated, sold, company goes bankrupt, whatever. We do not know. And here's my point. Here's the take-home lesson. If you're involved in a scam, do not talk about it with general public. Do not put the details online. You might want to warn people, but don't talk about your specific transaction because what you say and how you characterize and say, I did this, can often hurt you when it comes to later characterization for tax purposes. I would recommend that you not even talk with your tax preparer. Talk with your attorney, talk with your CPA. If you have a financial advisor, talk about them, but don't lay out all of the details and close your options on how to handle the final disposition of that scam transaction. There's often planning that can be done from the time that you realize that you've been scammed and the ultimate reporting on the tax that can at least benefit a little bit in recuperating that for tax purposes. Not always, but sometimes. It's certainly worth talking about. We'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, or feedback on this topic. Or if you want to talk with me one-on-one, that's easy to also. Go online, taxproblems.cpa website, and click the Let's Talk button. I'll be happy to set a time to chat. I'll be back tomorrow with another Tax Savings Minute.